President Trump has led this onslaught of lies. Assertions have been made that property is being confiscated. It's simply not true. They're saying people impacted by these storms will receive $750 in cash and no more. That is simply not true either. They're saying the money needed for these crises are being diverted to migrants. What the heck are they talking about? Stop it. It's outrageous.
You woke? Time to get up. Hello and welcome to another wonderful episode of Thought You're Woke, No Speed Limit Podcast. I'm your host, Alvin. I hope you guys are having a terrific day. I want to tell you something. I've been doing this for about 3 years. It's been ups, downs, all arounds. But I thank each and every one of you for being a viewer or a listener. And I enjoy doing these shows for you on a daily basis. Like I said, I've been doing them absolutely free for 3 years now. Eventually, that's going to change. But for right now, I love keeping it that way so we can keep you informed with free information. There's no problem there at all. Now, what I do need you to do is to like and share, because sharing gets this out to more people. The more people who get to know this, the more we can grow. Finally, do the most important thing of all: subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Today, I want to talk about Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. And the reason why I want to bring those two up, I know they've already happened. It's all the FEMA mess that's going on around this, thanks to one Donald Trump. In fact, listen to this.
They stole the FEMA money just like they stole it from a bank so they could give it to their illegal immigrants that they want to have vote for them this season.
There he goes again, blaming migrants for something. Yep, you got to blame somebody for something. Donald Trump cannot keep the words immigrants out of his mouth. He says they're taking over apartments in Aurora, Colorado. He says they're eating cats and dogs. Now he's saying they're stealing FEMA money. Yeah, no, that's not happening either. So here's the truth. And I think that's the best way we can do this. We always got to tell the truth. So here's the information I have. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas did say Tuesday that FEMA's disaster relief efforts are facing a dire cash crunch, warning that while the agency is meeting the immediate needs of Hurricane Helene recovery with the money that we have, it does not have the funds to make it through the hurricane season. Why? I will give you a little bit more information on that later on. Now, here's another part of that. But those financial issues aren't because of money going to migrants, while FEMA and U.S. Customs and Border Protection have given more than $1 billion since the start of 2023 to communities that are taking in migrants. That's been through the agency's Shelter and Service Program, a totally different funding pot than the disaster relief fund used to respond to hurricanes and other natural disasters. Now, people do have problems with this funding, but that has nothing to do with FEMA funding. FEMA says on this website that any claims that disaster funds were rerouted to a border-related efforts are false, noting that disaster relief funds is the dedicated fund for managing disaster. Money meant for the fund has not been diverted to other non-disaster related efforts. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, you can find this in Forbes magazine, Forbes online. You can also find this probably in Yahoo News, MSNBC, a couple of other news sites. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because what Donald Trump is doing right now is misconstruing facts. He's not telling the real story or the whole story. He's telling what he wants you to believe of a story. So, yes, there are funds for migrants available. And if you talk to anybody else, they won't say, if you listen online, I get a full story. We understand that they'll briefly mention the housing services that they have available, that this money is given to cities so that because they have this influx of migrants. You don't want a disaster. You don't want a whole bunch of immigrant people homeless on the street in the city. That can cause filth. that can cause disease, that can cause all other things. So it gives them an opportunity to put them in a temporary shelter. Now, like I said on their website, they talked about that. Congress determines how much money goes to FEMA's disaster fund, not the president, not the vice president. And the fund faces issues after lawmakers declined to allocate additional funding to FEMA's efforts in the stopgap funding bill it passed last month, only extending FEMA's existing funding level, allowing it to draw from $20 billion in funds more quickly. And you know who I'm going to let explain that? Let me let Republican Speaker of the House Johnson explain that to you.
Mr. Speaker, was it a mistake to leave and adjourn the Congress for the campaign trail without addressing more disaster relief funding given the circumstances that we now find ourselves in?
Well, the fact is, I think that many people have not fully understood is that we did address it, and we did appropriate $20 billion additional dollars to FEMA with early drawdown authority. So they're sitting on a giant pile of cash, and they haven't used it yet. As of Monday of this week, the Biden administration had only sent out about 1% of those dollars. They'd only distributed 1%. So there's plenty of money to address the immediate needs, and that's what we're counting on them and calling upon them to do.
Oh, right? So what you're saying is they have the funds available and they're not using all of the funds currently. But I don't think that's the whole story. I don't know why I don't think that is. I think we need to listen to the other side of this story too.
Is that right? That there's a ton of money that FEMA has and it's sitting on and not using?
Well, he's kind of right. Okay, so first of all, he didn't appropriate any additional dollars. He used the word additional. What he did is instead of giving FEMA the money they needed to complete the 2024 year budget because the disaster relief fund ran out of money, they originally were going to give FEMA $10 billion as part of the CR, but then the speaker stripped that out. Instead, what they said is you can start drawing money down from your 2025 budget early, which did give FEMA money. So he's right there, gave them $20 billion. So he's kicking the problem down the line. Now, what he didn't say is out of that $20 billion, $8 billion is already committed because FEMA has $8 billion of expenses from previous storms to reimburse that was on hold. So they have $12 billion, $12 billion to finish the 2024 season and for all of the 2025 season. By the way, we're not out of hurricane season, but they're going to spend a lot of that money in the Hurricane Helene response and in the Hurricane Milton response. And again, we're not out of hurricane season. He's also not right because he doesn't address the SBA. Small Business Administration, which gives out community disaster loans, is out of money. They don't have enough money to do both Milton and Helene. And that's the money that gets these small business, family-owned businesses through their community disaster because their communities right now are closed. And so I'm worried about the SBA not having enough money. He knew that problem before we went on break. Listen, I know why the speaker doesn't want to call us back. He doesn't want to call us back because he can't pass that bill without the Democrats. His caucus is such a mess. He doesn't have the vote, so I don't blame him.
So let's go back to this. Remember what Donald Trump said, that their FEMA's giving all the money to the immigrants? Well, he blamed Biden and Harris for that, right? Like they're just taking money because they can just literally take. No, guess who gets the mic? Who gets to vote on where this money goes? So the House money that they've set aside that is a separate fund from the money for disaster relief. It's set aside by Congress, who now refuses to give any more money to FEMA to help people in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida. They're not going to help them. That is what they're saying. So you got plenty of money and you can borrow from next year's fund. The only problem is, like he said, there are $8 billion tied up from previous years that still have not been allocated. And that is why people still complain about Katrina from years ago, complaining about Ivan from years ago, because of these kind of things where budgetary crises keep happening over and over again. And guess who most of the time is at the center of those budget crises? The Republican Party. Donald Trump and his buddies. Johnson is a big supporter of Donald Trump, but Donald Trump blames this all on liberals. I need y'all to listen to how bad Donald Trump's little game has caused. What problems Donald Trump's little game has caused.
Hurricane Helene utterly devastated this region of North Carolina. This region in particular is Lake Laurel, which on its borders includes the areas of Chimney Rock, Hendersonville, and to the north, Asheville. I spoke with the locals here, and I had a very simple question for them. If you could speak to President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, what would you say to them and why?
Okay, I paused here for a second. I want y'all to remember that particular area because it's going to be important to the story as we move along. Because I got a lot more to tell you. But let's listen to some of the citizens and what they had
What
to
would
say.
you say to them and why?
Without saying the F word, it's nice that you're helping the illegal immigrants, but it's time to help us people that pay taxes all our life. You know what I mean? Like, enough is enough. We need help here. They've got people put up in $300 apartments, hotel rooms, and I don't see one FEMA trailer here for the people that lost their homes. There's nothing here for the people that lost their homes.
That I wish they would put more help into people who are in the United States, people who are in the country, people who do help and come around and help others. It should be neighborly. They should treat everyone in America that way and not people outside of the country. We should focus on our internal damage, not our external damage.
Treat people the way you want to be treated. That's how we live our life. It isn't, the whole political thing, just do what's right, man. And if people are in need, come out and help them. That's it. If you say you're going to do something, do it. Pay attention to what really needs to matter here, not so much what's going on outside the United States. That's frustrating. When we have so much going on here right now, I feel like we could always be doing more. That's why on our days off, we drove 14 hours and came out here.
I'd say we need more FEMA money to make its way into Chimney Rock, Lake Lure, and in this area. It's total devastation downtown, and it's going to take years to recover it, as you can see.
Oh, this is only the tip of the surface of the problem that these people are facing because, Donald Trump says they're helping immigrants. They're not helping them at all. FEMA's working in the area. Oh, FEMA is working in the area, but I need you to hear this as to why there's such a problem getting help to people.
All right, so I want to take you back to that promised breaking news, new details over reported threats against FEMA first responders. So authorities say they've arrested a man in connection with these threats that paused some operations in North Carolina, operations and outreach. CBS News Homeland Security and Justice reporter Nicole Skanga, we talked to you earlier talking about the problem. Now you're back on the stream talking about what the response is. What can you tell us about who was arrested?
Yeah, Reed, an update here. Authorities in North Carolina have arrested 44-year-old William Jacob Parsons of Bostic, North Carolina. We have the mugshot there. Parsons was arrested and charged with going armed to the terror of the public. He was armed with a handgun and a rifle. Here's what happened. The Rutherford County Sheriff's Office says this arrest was made after deputies were alerted around 1 p.m. local time Saturday that a white male had an assault rifle and had made a threat about possibly harming FEMA employees working after Hurricane Helene and that disaster in the Lake Lurie and Chimney Rock area. Those deputies alerted officers with the local police department and other agencies helping in those relief efforts. That is when FEMA made the decision to issue its stand down to officials. And again, just want to reiterate here that search and rescue efforts are still underway and that FEMA's disaster relief doors are still open, but there was a decision made not to go door to door at that time. Now,
so while the majority of the citizens are just upset about misinformation they've already got from Trump, there are some other citizens who have decided to take the law into their own hand. And let me explain something. There is a lot going on with that is not being explained in this video that should be explained in this video. See, for instance, what you don't know is that FEMA had to put out a check sheet because of these folks. Because they kept running their mouths saying all this stuff was happening. That's not happening. In fact, let me show it to you right here. So, what are you looking at here? This is the FEMA fact check sheet. That's right, the FEMA fact check sheet. And yeah, I'm showing you all everything I got up here on my computer. Sorry, but I have to show you this. Myth, fact, North Carolina response. Now, this is for the people on the radio. Here's the myth one of the myths that's being spread by conservatives or crazy folks in the area. FEMA is in the process of confiscating Helene survivor property. If I apply for disaster assistance and my land is deemed unlivable, my property will be seized. That is actually false. FEMA cannot seize your property or land. Applying for disaster assistance does not grant FEMA or the federal government authority or ownership of your property or land when you apply for the disaster assistance. A FEMA inspector may be sent to verify the damage of your home. If the results of the inspection deemed your home uninhabitable, that information is only used to determine the amount of FEMA assistance you may receive to make your home safe, sanitary, and functional. That's all. They cannot take your home. Now, this comes from me, a person who has used FEMA before, because a flood wiped out the place I lived, and my sister-in-law at the time, her place was wiped totally out. I just lost my car. FEMA paid for my car. FEMA paid for her apartment and her ability to move to another place because the apartment she was deemed in was deemed unlivable. Now, the apartment complex itself got more money than she did because she was the renter. But because of what she lost, she had enough to move to another apartment. Now, that being said, here's another myth. FEMA is asking for cash donations and turning away volunteers. FEMA does not ask for generally accepted any cash donations. As I told you earlier, they are funded by the government and they do not take disaster volunteers. Now, FEMA encourages people who want to help to volunteer with or donate cash to reputably voluntary and charitable organizations. So church organizations, other charity organizations out there, Red Cross, those things. If you encounter someone claiming to represent FEMA and asking for donations, be careful as that is likely a scam. Government employees will never solicit money. It always happens during disaster. Someone is out there trying to scam, take money. So they'll claim that they're FEMA. FEMA's doing this. There's always been some rumors out there. FEMA trailers. People in North Carolina who you just heard them say, I would love to have a FEMA trailer. There are a bunch of people who say, I don't want a FEMA trailer. I don't want FEMA assistance. That's why we got the nutcase here who has decided to attack FEMA workers if possible. He's threatening them. So now they're not going door to door helping people while people are complaining that FEMA is not helping them and it's Joe Biden and Harris' fault. It seems like there's some self-destructive behavior going on with the people in these small communities up there in North Carolina and Asheville. It's probably happening in Tennessee and Georgia too. I understand there's some issues there. They're small communities. Usually they're very rural. And there are some stereotypes that go with small rural people. They don't like government very much. They don't trust the government at all. But at the same time, they're asking the government to help them when they say, oh, you're over there helping the immigrants. But then you turn around and self-destruct by doing things like this. I understand they say this man supposedly acted alone. But there's a reason why this information is out here is because all of this stuff is going on. FEMA distributes aid based on demographic characteristics. Also not true. FEMA provides assistance to survivors regardless of race, color, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, religion, age, disability, English proficiency, political affiliation, or economic status. All these lives are going on. FEMA does not have enough money to provide disaster assistance for Helene. FEMA has enough money right now for immediate response and recovery needs. So other monies that may be needed later, they will, try to get that allocated. And as I told you, there are some issues. There are some issues here, but the reason why those issues exist, and I will also show you that here, FEMA says on its website that any claims that disaster funds were rerouted or related efforts are false, noting that Disaster Relief Fund is a dedicated fund for managing disaster, and money meant for the fund has not been diverted or other Congress determines how much money goes to FEMA's disaster fund. The fund faces issues after lawmakers declined to allocate additional funding to FEMA's efforts, and the stopgap funding bill is passed last month, only extending FEMA's existing funding level and allowing it to draw from $20 billion funds more quickly. Democratic lawmakers have expressed concern about FEMA's budget even before Helene hit. FEMA had to stop funding non-emergency rebuilding efforts in order to preserve funds, and some have now called for Congress to come back from the recess to pass legislation that would give the disaster relief more cash. And I think that's pretty straightforward there. In other words, they're saying they don't have enough money to rebuild because there are still other disasters out there that we're still rebuilding from. Now we got Milton and Helene, and possibly there could be another one. We're getting towards the end of hurricane season. Hopefully there are no more hurricanes. We're going to pray for that. But there have been like 3 or 4 that have hit the United States this year. So that means that there are other things that have to be funded, even though the damage of those other hurricanes was not as much as it is at this one. The United States has got to take care of those. So that means that money dries up when the government said, hey, you know what? You got plenty of money out there. You don't need any more. Just use funds next year. Of course, there'll be disasters next year and the year after that. We forget there have been fires, there have been earthquakes, there have been landslides, there have been floods in other places around the United States, tornadoes, all of these things that FEMA have been involved in across the country. Yet our congressmen like Johnson are saying, oh, we don't have enough funds. Meanwhile, false information, and I'm not going to stop here talking about false information because there was one other piece that you need. So here's the thing that you need to know most of all, that the information that you've received today is the information that's really available to any person in the world. Unfortunately, this gentleman right here decided that this information is not what he wanted to hear. He wanted to hear the rhetoric. He wanted to spread hate. He wanted to spread fear. He wanted to rebel against the United States and cause a civil war in the middle of the world because of what? Because of what Donald Trump said. And he's not the only one. Oh, let's not forget Marjorie Taylor Greene claimed that the storm was caused by the Democrats. Yep, that's right. Marjorie Taylor Greene claimed it was caused by the Democrats. So let's not forget that as well. These are the agents of chaos. Meanwhile, I want you to hear what Harris had to say about this.
Upsets me so is the idea that any politician would play political games with these folks, with people who are in the midst of such suffering, loss of life, loss of their homes, loss of normalcy, and then for the sake of political gain, tell their lies in a way that is meant to make people distrust the help that is there for them to receive. It just is something we have to say, look, at some point, we have to work together. And I'll tell you, there are plenty of leaders who are working in a bipartisan way. I've talked to governors of both parties who are working in a bipartisan way to get the aid to people on the ground. And
Yep, absolutely disgusting what these politicians are doing. They're sowing chaos in the middle of a voting season just to cause chaos just for the heck of chaos. No, when people are suffering and people are hurting, you need leaders that will lift you up and who will show that they're leaders, that they will comfort you, that their help is on the way. No, Donald Trump walked around through there talking about help won't come till I get in office because the Democrats are giving all your money to immigrants and I won't do that. No. But you can't do anything for anybody right now. Except slogging around through the mud and getting in the way. That's all you can do, Donald Trump. And you're going to keep blaming them for something that's not going on at all. And as she said, the governors, that's Republican, Democrat governors, all of what you don't like. All of them who are opposed to some of the things that you do. Yeah, you don't like them right now. So that's fine. That's okay. You cannot like them. So then you make false statements about these guys who are doing hard work, who are trying to work hard to help people. And then it causes chaos and creates people like this gentleman who decide to do evil things and other people who are now refusing to even FEMA trailers or FEMA assistance out of fear because of false rumors that are being spread. Disasters are made worse by stupidity from people who call themselves leaders, people who plan on being politicians in this country. Trump, you do not have my vote. You never had my vote, but you definitely don't have my vote now because of all the things you're doing. And folks, Harris is proving more and more why she should be president of the United States. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it at that. I do not get why anybody in North, South Carolina would vote for a man who will totally screw up everything and make sure you never get a federal dime, because the same one that you put in the White House are like the ones in Congress who are not funding you right now. You need to put the right people in office who will do right by you, and these aren't the people. And I've said my piece. They're proving to you, to your face, they'll blame everybody else but themselves for what they're not doing. Congress has the power. Convene right now. Make sure that those funds are properly there, not only to handle past storms, because those things still need to be paid out. We're talking about Katrina, Ivan, all the way back to that time. That stuff still needs to be rebuilt from. There are neighborhoods that were destroyed from the last hurricane, from fires in California, from storms in the Midwest, in the South. It is necessary that we do the right thing for people. I've said my piece. I don't think there's any more that needs to be said. The decision is made for me. I cannot honestly vote for a man like Trump. He's so full of hate, so full of anger and fear-mongering that he doesn't see that the chaos he's causing is not helping anybody's situation. Folks, I'm all out of time. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I thank you again for tuning in to Thought Your Woke No Speed Limit podcast. If you made it this far, make sure that you leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe. Peace. You have been listening to Thought Your Woke No Speed Limit podcast.